middle too is fine. Yeah. If I can have your attention here in the media center and upstairs in the press box, we are now joined by the race-winning crew chief of today's 59th annual Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, and that is Rodney Childers of the number 4 Jimmy John's Ford. And we also have Stewart Haas Racing Vice President of Competition, Greg Zipadelli. Rodney, I'm going to start with you. You unloaded with a fast hot rod here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and it certainly dominated today. How comforting was to have that kind of fast race car at your disposal to take this one to victory?
Yeah, I mean, this has been somewhere that we've always worked on really hard. You know, I think everybody knows how good Kevin is here, and every winter we seem to work on this racetrack and be prepared as much as possible. You know, just put everything into it we can, and in all honesty, over the winter you don't really know where you stand, you know, with all the stuff that had changed with you know, the new scanning process and all, and we kind of would look at each other every week and just kind of wonder how we're going to be, and you know, it was pretty awesome to come down here and all 4 cars have good speed, and you know, really just everybody did a great job all weekend of adjusting on it, and you know, we made it better every time we got on the racetrack, and made it better going into the race, and got off a little bit in the middle of the race and got it going again there at the end.
Zippy, as Rodney mentioned, all 4 cars had speed here this weekend. Was this a race that Stewart Haas Racing had circled on the calendar, knowing coming in that you were going to have such a dominant run today?
Oh, you circle them all because they're all important, right? I mean, that's what we do is we race. I'm just proud of everybody at Stewart Haas, and honestly, I know everybody says that, but you know, in the last year or so, from the switch over to this year with the Hawkeye and learning procedures and putting things in place, crew chiefs working together, everybody in our shop working to build you know, good race cars, quality, working on details, the people that we moved around in the shop to you know, to help hopefully prepare better race cars, to get Rodney and those guys to just continue to work on and tinker with, and that's what they're great at. You know, they like to take them and find those little things, and I was just proud of everybody for our cars to unload and have speed. This is a place that's all about, you know, grip, and drivers got to like it. So, you know, by no means are we out of the woodwork, right? We're headed to Vegas, which is a complete opposite type of a racetrack next week. So, you know, we'll look at where we're at and judge ourselves again next week. But awesome win. They've led so many laps here. I can't speak for Rodney, but I know in my past it's kind of almost like a relief, right? It's like you got a driver that runs really good at one of those racetracks. It's like I just got to go win that, but to win this early in the season for these guys, so proud of them. Kind of gets the monkey off their back. You know what they went through last year. Could have won a bunch of them, and just you know, circumstances and things. So just proud of everybody.
Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. We'll start here on the right here with Mike, and then we'll go to Bob.
Mike, USA today. Rodney, when you have a really fast car like you guys obviously did today, and you have other teams trying wacky strategies to get around you and win that way, does that play into what you're doing at all? Do you take much notice of that, or do you stay on course?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I love that kind of racing. I love these types of racetracks where you have a lot of fall off. It gives you a lot of options like that. You know, it makes me realize that we need to work on some things and work on our tools to give us a better idea of what we should do and shouldn't do. But you know, we just kind of winged it a little bit. You know, at first we were just going to go with a one-stop deal to the end, and then everybody started talking about stopping twice. And you know, when you look at the leaderboard and you kind of see where you're at, and you know how much you're leading by and all that stuff, you have to just figure it all out in your head of what would be good. And you know, just thankful that it worked out. You know, everybody did a really good job with it.
Go next to Bob, then to Jacob, and then to Jeff.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. Rodney, can you explain what happened on the pit stop where you had the pit gun issue, and is that an ongoing concern?
Honestly, I haven't talked to those guys. I didn't even get off the box to even investigate. We've got good coaches that handle that stuff, and you know, I have to be honest. The people that have took that on really have done an outstanding job. Like there's no way I could sit up here and complain about anything they've done, because I can't imagine, you know, taken that on over the winter, and what they did over a 2-month span or a 3-month span of trying to get all this stuff ready for the teams, number one. But my opinion is we're going to go through ups and downs, and we need to go through them together and learn together, and that's part of it.
Jacob?
Jacob Seelman, Race Chaser Online and Performance Motorsports Network. Zippy, you were kind of alluding to it in your opening comments, but with all 4 cars running as strong as they did today, and I know this is kind of a different mile and a half, but what kind of a statement is it for Stewart-Haas Racing coming out like this, with last year having the transition to Ford and it taking a little bit? Is this a huge statement for you guys for what we can expect going forward, or do we really have to wait for the West Coast swing to know long-term kind of where the team sits compared to everybody else?
Well, I mean, it's a feel-good at this moment. I mean, we had great cars at Daytona. These guys did a really good job. Circumstances took all of them out, but we came here and unloaded and had speed. It's a moving target, right? I mean, we're gonna go to Vegas with some momentum and some decent racetracks for us coming up, but everybody else around us is working just as hard. They're not sitting home and just taking time off from work. So that's what makes this sport so interesting. Is you'll have, like Rodney said, them ups and downs, and as a group, I think it gives us a little confidence working together and what we brought here. But by no means is that a victory for the year. Oh, I think absolutely we're in a little bit better place. These guys have had a year to work with the car and understand it, and make some little adjustments, understanding what you have and what you're working with every week. But like Rodney said, we unloaded, and I don't know that anybody really knew where they would stand amongst the competition. There was some aero balance changes with just the way that they're doing the process of inspection, and how far you could push things and what you could get away with, and all those little details. So these guys did a great job. They unloaded with really good race cars, and they executed well all weekend. And that's the biggest part is being able to execute when you have that a good car, good speed, and all our teams did it. Rodney did it phenomenally today.
Go to Jeff and then to Jonathan.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com for Rodney. Speaking of the inspection changes, what impact, if any, do you think that had on this weekend? Did that help anybody or hurt anybody? Do you see that having more of an impact as the season goes forward?
Yeah, I think it's still too early to tell. Zippy, I tell you, I was pretty against all that stuff over the winter when it first got brought up, and I was one of the ones that just thought that there's no way that's going to work, and there's going to be a lot of problems. And I've got to say, it's been crazy how good it has been. We went through, I don't know, 6 times this weekend, and you lay all that stuff out on top of each other, and it's almost identical every time you go through there. And the thing that I like the most is the LIS portion of it and the rear housing toe. We struggled with that with the laser platform, and this deal has been crazy consistent when we were at Daytona and really consistent here this weekend. We never changed the truck arm slug the whole weekend. We never changed the track bar length the whole weekend. And, last year there were some weekends, God, we'd be changing the track bar, 2 rounds and an 1/8 of an inch on a slug just because the temperature was different one day than the other. So, they've done a heck of a job with that thing. And, I was wrong, 2 months ago, but thankful that they've got it under control now, and it seems to be doing really good.
Go next to Jonathan, and then to Jessica, and then to Bob.
Jonathan Ingram from RacingToday.com. Rodney, at the outset of the final segment, Brad Keselowski and Kevin got past the 41 car, but then Kevin had trouble doing anything with Brad or getting back into the lead. You made kind of an old school call, I guess, relative to a wacky strategy. Bring in Kevin and do the pit stop. You got back in the lead. How important was that for you to get back in the lead at that point, also in terms of being able to build a lead against the 11 car?
Well, I felt like that was one of our worst runs of the night. I felt like we had lost the balance of the race car. I also felt like he was running the car hard and had burned the right rear tire off of it. And, I felt like the thing to do was to get back in the lead. No matter how we had to do it, I thought we needed to control the race. And I've learned my lesson here too many times of, a few years ago we got beat by the 48 of losing control of the race and having to restart on the outside. And that's just how this place is. You gotta control what you can control and make sure that you put yourself in the best position, and that's all we were trying to do there.
Jessica, Bob, and then Matt.
Jessica Ruffin with NASCAR.com. This is for Rodney. You guys have led 116 laps every year since you and Kevin have been together at Stewart-Haas. So because you guys have had so much success but haven't been able to get the win, how does it feel to finally get that win? And was there ever a point in the race where you kind of worried, like, is something going to happen again to take it away?
Honestly, I worried the whole race. I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of fun to come here with him, and he knows what he needs in the race car. And he knows, what it should feel like, I guess. And to lead all those laps over all the years and kind of always give them away, we would sit and joke about it, about, there's a curse, and it seems like it had been forever since he won a race here. But, even before I started working with him, I hated racing against him at this place. And, I can remember racing with Ruderman here, and we had a great car the whole weekend and qualified up front and ran top 3 or 4 the whole race, and we'd just drive away from him the first 20 laps of a run, and by the end of about 50 laps, he'd have about 3/4 of a track on us. So there's something that he has figured out, that he can keep the tires on it and does a good job for us.
Go to Bob.
Bob Pockers, ESPN. Rodney, what's the difference between winning race 2 versus waiting till race 16?
It's definitely a huge relief. I think as a race team, the 4 teams mentality has always been to try to win a race in the first 5 races. We've been able to accomplish that some years, and last year we couldn't. I think overall it just gives us a little bit of time to work on our stuff and get it better. Like I said, I had no idea if we were going to run good or bad when we showed up. You don't know where everybody else is with their stuff, and you don't know if you got more downforce, less downforce, and more grip or less grip. You don't know any of that stuff. So you just got to get through a few races. And even now, I don't, like Zippy said, this isn't a good indication of what we have as a company. We need to get through a few weeks and keep working hard, and then reevaluate where we're at.
We are now joined by the winning driver of today's 59th annual Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, and then as Kevin Harvick, driver the number 4 Jimmy John's Ford for Stewart-Haas Racing. Kevin, your 38th win here in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, and you dominated early and you closed it strong. Walk us through how satisfying today was for you.
Today was very satisfying, just for the fact that we were able to overcome so much that, in my mind, is very rewarding for everybody on the team. To make a comeback of some mistakes and make the car better, and then make a great pit call to get our track position back. Just a number of things happened with the last pit stop. Those guys nailed it, and the last restart. So those are the things that kind of put all those little question marks out of your head, and you say, all right, that worked out pretty well. But really, we've had since I've been at Stewart-Haas Racing, we've had 5 cars that could have done the same the same exact thing that we did tonight, and pretty much did. Just different situations didn't allow us to drive it to victory lane. So just really happy to come back to victory lane. It's been a long time since I've been able to drive into victory lane here on Sunday, and honestly, I didn't have any idea that we would even have a chance of running this race today. So to get the race in, and it'll make it a lot better on the guys getting out west, and take some pressure off of that, because it's a pretty hectic time, and of travel and different things like that. So I worry about that more than myself. and you know, just because it's so tough from a crew guy's standpoint to get them through these next few weeks.
Okay, we'll keep on going here in the deadline room. We'll go here to Matt and then to Jacob.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. This is a question for Rodney and for Zippy. With the new engine regulations this year, does winning a race early do anything to change how you guys conserve when you're going to reuse an engine, or you guys pretty much have that mapped out for the rest of the year?
He probably knows better than I do. I'm lost on that part.
Doug Yates and his guys have kind of mapped that out for the year, you know, and there's 6 different versions, and obviously a lot of it goes by if you get in a wreck and you hurt a motor, or if you blow up early in the season, it changes it. So in all honesty, it's going to kind of be a work in progress. Right now, things are okay for us. They'll all work out. Everybody will have a motor. It'll just be, you know, obviously you're working towards using up your motors and having your freshest and newest stuff as you enter the chase, or, you know, towards those races.
Go to Jacob, and we'll come over here in the middle.
Jacob Seelman, Race Chaser Online and Performance Motorsports Network. I've actually got a couple for Kevin. First, I want to go back to yesterday's Xfinity race. Didn't get a chance to ask you about this, but your first drive in the 98 car with Biaggi Dembesti, having the history that they have, folding that into Stewart-Haas, and for you being able to be a part of that history, you kind of were one of the building blocks for SHR, and now for that 98 team. What's it mean to you to be a part of that and to score a win for them on a downforce track?
Yeah, you know, I met Bill and Fred for the first time this weekend and realized that they just like to race. And, you know, fortunately, I have 2 other owners that just like to race, in Gene Haas and Tony Stewart. And that's the unique part about what we do. It's like, you know, when we put the whole 98 thing together with Stewart-Haas Racing and Biaggi Dembesti, and it was really just about trying to get the most resources to put the fastest car on the racetrack, and that's all they care about. And, you know, from a driver and a team guy's standpoint, that is rare. And, you know, for me, owning teams and sitting in the walls of Stewart-Haas Racing and seeing just kind of the demeanor of how everything operates is very blue collar, but it's very racer mentality, you know, from inside out, and that comes from the ownership group, and, you know, Fred and Bill just add to that. And, you know, I think as you look at the start of the Xfinity program, and you know, I said this yesterday, I get to come in and do this on occasion and, you know, give some input. The real guys that are doing this are on the 00 car with Cole and his crew chief that are the building blocks week in and week out, and we come in and, you know, we try some different things and do some different things, but they've done a great job, and it's fun to go out and have a chance to win on Saturday.
Now, the start of this season, last week at Daytona, we watch a black number 3 go to victory lane in the biggest race of the sport. This weekend, you, the guy who replaced Dale Earnhardt after his passing, go to victory lane at the track where you got your first Cup win. To see history repeat itself like that, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you to finally be back in victory lane here?
Yeah, well, it means a lot to me, and it's funny how, and ironic how, all these things line up, and it's kind of ironic how we wound up in victory lane that day. And, you know, Dale's teams won, you know, the first 2 races, and we were able to win the next race in 2001. You know, you see that 3 back in victory lane, and us back in victory lane tonight. It's just how it's meant to be. And, you know, I think for me, you know, to be able to kind of do that celebration again, very similar to what we did in 2001. I've been waiting a long time, because 2001 was very confusing. You know, it was my first win, and don't feel like I remember really anything about it, because it was just such a really confusing time in my life, and you know, just on the racetrack, and with Dale gone and getting in his car, and not with my team that I had built over the last you know, couple years at RCR, and then I raced so much in 2001 that you didn't really, you know, see the repercussions of everything that had happened until 2002, and we were terrible in 2002. So it was, you know, it was a lot. It was fun to be able to go to actually pay tribute and smile about what was going on in the night, and not just, not know if you should actually stick your hand out the window if somebody was going to be offended, or somebody was going to be mad, and whether it was the right thing to do or wrong thing to do, and it was your first win. So there was just a lot of confusing things. So it felt good to pay tribute to that and park it in victory lane with a smile on my face, and watch everybody smile with me. Yeah, all the way around, just like we did it in 2001.
We'll go next to Charles, then to Bob, then to Jeff, and to the young ladies from the Prowler.
Charles Odom with Associated Press. That's exactly what I would want to follow up on. I wanted to ask you about. You appeared to have some emotions at that time when you did the reprise of the Three Fingers. Were you thinking about the frustrations of the last 5 years, or were you thinking about 17 years ago and what that meant?
For me, there was just a lot of happiness. I think just to be able to go back and look at that moment, and I was happy for my team. I'm happy for my guys. I love to see them smile, and I love to see them excited. And there's so much work that goes into what we do, and the things that happen on the racetrack are hard to make happen. And when you have a night like this, and you have a group of guys that you spend so much time with, there's nothing better than seeing all those guys smile. I love winning races, and love running up front, but there's nothing better than the guys you go in there and battle with every week, having a smile on their face.
Bob
Hawkers, ESPN. Kevin, you weren't the only driver to have issues with pit guns and pit equipment. Are you concerned about that at all?
I honestly don't know exactly 100% what happened, so that's way out of my category of things that I need to be commenting on.
Jeff?
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com for Kevin. None of the drivers in the top 8 have less than 8 years of experience, so it was a very veteran-heavy lineup, I guess, or finishing order. Is that a coincidence? Does that have anything to do with this track?
Talladega's in April. There's no coincidence. It's this is a racetrack that takes a lot of experience, and there's a lot of things that you have to know about your car and know about the racetrack, to get the car around a racetrack. So it's this is where experience pays off at these types of racetracks for sure.
Head over to your right.
Ashlyn Long from the Prowler. This is for Kevin. So I ran the numbers, and the average age of the SHR drivers is 10 years more than the other multi-car teams. What message does your win send to the young guns who have gotten a lot of attention to begin this season?
Look, we need to introduce new people and new stars in our sport, and I don't have a message other than our sport is great. I love racing cars, and we have to have great competitors, to make the diverse fan base have people to root for. And some people like, calm, shy Ryan Blaney that knows a lot about the sport, or Chase Elliott who's been around racing and has those deep ties to NASCAR and the southern roots of our sport. And those guys are all important. And when everybody realizes how important the young guys are to the old guys, and the tweeners have to do the same. And there's not one person. There's no 2 young guys that are going to make it. There's no 2 old guys that are going to make it. This is all about everybody. You have to have somebody to race. I can remember Jim Hunter sitting in his motorhome, and he'd blow cigarette smoke on me and ask me if I wanted another hot dog. And he'd say, "Son, you got to have somebody to pass." And every week it's somebody different. You have to have somebody to pass, and if you don't have anybody to pass, you can't call it a race. And we're in a great spot in our sport. And I think tonight there was a lot of experience. Next week there'll be a lot of young guys in the mix with a racetrack that's a little calmer with things that you don't have to have in your memory bank. But we're in a great spot in our sport because we have these young guys that are fired up and can drive the car fast and have great stories and have ties to great family heritage of our sport, and you have guys that you've never heard of, and that's what you have to have. The diversity, from young to old, is something that we haven't had in a long time, and we're going to corral everybody to to make sure that they realize that we all need each other in order to make this sport what we all want it to be.
We'll head upstairs to the press box.
Lee Spencer Motorsport.com. What would the Kevin Harvick today tell the 25-year-old Kevin Harvick that won here back in 2001?
Sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut, and everything's not a show. Running fast is enough merit and enough show. Man, I didn't. I said and did a lot of dumb things. So I guess you could call them building blocks, and now we can laugh about them. But it was entertaining at the time. Got me a couple of vacations. Richard chewed me out a lot. I sat Mike Helton. We need more of Mike Helton in today's NASCAR, just because he was the guy that could just look at you and you knew you were like you were in big trouble when he would just give you that look and you'd sit there in awkward silence. You guys have probably sat there with Tony, right? Yeah, he probably sat in that trailer with Tony, and he'd look at you and just not even say anything and just stare at you. And the next thing you go, well, this isn't good. And it would just be the most thought out, well said thing that you've ever imagined, and you'd leave there and you're like, oh my God, I may never race again. So, yeah.
We'll come back downstairs to Kelly and then go back to Bob.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Kevin, you've said in the past that you're a driver who likes challenges. You need something to kind of challenge yourself and sort of chase. Obviously, in the last few years, you've had those with the switch to Ford, the switch to Stewart-Haas Racing. But I'm just curious, is going into, now you've been doing this for so long, this is your 18th year at the Cup level, are challenges just something you look for on a weekly basis or a yearly basis? Like, what is it that you like to have kind of, I guess, dangling out there?
Yeah, well, I think you have to find something on a weekly basis in order to keep yourself enthused. And for me right now, the sport is what enthuses me and kind of is very intriguing to me, because there's a lot of things that need some help and guidance, with so many of the young guys coming up through the ranks, and there's so much to learn, but we have to teach them about it. And Jimmy Johnson and myself have talked about it. Somebody has to explain to them how things work and show them the ropes, and that to me is fun. And you want to go beat them on the racetrack still. It's not anything about that, but we need to get back to where everybody can go drink a beer together and have a good time. And I walk in the garage and we try to do as many things as we can for the officials and people in NASCAR, just because it just feels like everybody has kind of forgotten exactly how much fun this is and how lucky we are to walk into this garage on a weekly basis, or to sit in that car on a weekly basis and drive race cars around in circles. And for me, I've just got a much better appreciation of how cool it is to sit in that race car and really enjoy the things that I do, and I want to spread that to the rest of them, because it's not all sponsors and politics and business and all the things that you think it all is right now. It's fun. Everything we did to get to this point is fun, and I want to make sure that everybody hears me talk about how fun this is, and realize, and maybe you spark some interest in somebody in the garage, or working on the car, or driving a car, that we're lucky to do what we do. So you better enjoy it, because it might not be here tomorrow.
Bob
Hawkers, ESPN. How big or how different is it to win on race 2 compared to race 16 last year to get your first win? For you, Kevin.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
It's huge, because the stress level goes way down. Even last year when we were in a good position from a point standpoint, people just kept winning, and you're like, well, is this the year that 16 different guys win and you don't get in on points? You just never know. So to knock that win out early and put yourself in a better playoff position, and already gathered 6 points, and it'll allow us to really go to work on the things that we need to work on when we get to Vegas next week, and see where we fall and know where we sit from a downforce standpoint is important. The different racetracks we go to, you have this worn out racetrack, and you have a super speedway, and then you go to Martinsville, So you have Vegas and Texas that are kind of the key racetracks to really see what you need to work on and go from there. I would not put this in the good indicator category.
We'll come down front and we'll finish over on the right.
That was my same question. It's got to feel good to be in the chase this early.
It's the playoffs. We got to get that messaging right. And it's the optical scanning station that we go through to put these cars through inspection. And I learn all this stuff from my good friend Daniel Norwood, because I get multiple emails on a weekly basis now that I'm a serious radio show host. So I'm very in tune with these phrases. But it just takes a ton of pressure off. And if you can go out and win more races, that's what makes winning early more fun. And if you can go out and gather some points and pull into victory lane some more. So, and we're gonna have fun, either way.
We'll finish up here with the young lady on the right.
Dana Gould, the Prowler. Knowing this track eats up your tires really quickly, what do you do, like strategy-wise, to minimize that fallout?
We've been working on our traction control really well. We've really got our traction control dialed in, and that comes in your foot, and that's the biggest key to. Are you laughing at me? I know that laugh, Keelan. Oh, okay. I think that the biggest thing is just trying to take care of your car in the first 7 or 8 laps to really, try to not abuse the tires. And I did that a couple times tonight, and it definitely affected the car. But when we had the track position in the clear track and could manage the aero side of things, not being behind another car, it really allowed us to save the tires, and that just really piled up, for us over the long run. Because we could really dictate the pace and have managed what we did from a tire saving standpoint. So the first 7 or 8 laps are really important as to what's going to happen at lap 20, 30, and 40.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations on the hard-fought victory tonight, and then good luck next week in Vegas.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.